Hello, and welcome to On the Way. This is episode 8, and my last episode, episode 7, I had left Illinois and started heading to Colorado. I was going to Colorado for a birthday party that my kids were throwing me because I was turning 60. I fought them hard and long, but they won, and we agreed to do an open house kind of party. So I knew I needed to be back in Colorado by my birthday. But this episode's going to be a little bit different because when I was traveling from Illinois after Christmas and New Year, actually, I was led to go into Montana. And I had been on the western coast when I was in California. I went up into Oregon and into Washington, but I hadn't yet been up into Montana. And I didn't really think about it. I didn't think about where I was going. Just went to the places I felt God was leading me. So Montana felt like it was the next one on the list for whatever reason. After being with my stepdad and being with him when he passed, I didn't feel like it took a toll on me at all as far as feeling, yes, I felt bad because he passed away and that makes us sad, but I knew he had a peaceful death. But I think that oftentimes when we go through something like that, we don't realize that it can take a toll on us. I had some downtime right after he passed away before we did the memorial, but then the memorial, I think, refreshed everything. And then I got busy with getting ready to move out of his cabin and packing up my things and getting ready to take off again. And I had that sleigh bell parade that I went to. So I was keeping myself busy and not spending a lot of time on taking care of me. But so from there I went, like I said in my last episode, I went from there to Illinois to spend Christmas and New Year with my family. And that's a busy time. So I still didn't, which is something I think a lot of us do who take care of others. I truly believe that I was sent here to be a servant. And I say that with the highest level of love that you can have because I embrace it. And I love that I'm a servant. So in my life, when I went to school to become a nurse, I was excited because I knew I would be serving people, which is something that I feel like gives me energy. So taking care of Larry and being with him just solidified that for me. But there is some place in each one of us that can be weakened if we can't recoup some of that energy. And it's not that he completely drained me, but it was a difficult time. So as I left Illinois after Christmas and New Year and headed towards Montana, weather was getting somewhat bad. So I was taking interstates and not the back roads because there was inclement weather. There were, snow and what you expect in January. But I went into Montana and I, I stopped for the night. I can't remember the name of the town, but it was a very small town. I just stayed the night there because it was getting late. And before I stopped that night, I had pulled over into a state park that afforded me the time to reconnect with God and I always feel connected, but sometimes it's hard to explain, but I feel when I'm in nature and it's just me and him, there's a revitalization that happens. And like I said, I don't know how to explain it, but he re-energizes me and makes me feel so special and so loved. And so I was afforded that opportunity, and it was a long day. I hiked for a few miles, but it was more of sitting in stillness and meditating and just being with him. Well, then by the time I left, it was getting dark, and I just felt the guidance to stop in a certain town, and I did. And stopping in that little town, it was a very small hotel, and I really didn't see anybody. It was kind of late. I did the check-in this weird way, I remember, and stayed the night and got in my car and knew I was going to Billings for whatever reason. So I drove to Billings. So by that afternoon, I had found a place to stay. It was an Airbnb because I think for me, having Bonnie, my dog, it's so much cheaper to stay in an Airbnb because hotels charge you a fortune these days when you have a dog. And there are some Airbnbs that are dog friendly and they don't charge you to have your dog there. And it's nice to have a little yard so she can run around and feel like a dog instead of a passenger in my car. So it was always nice when I had a space like that. And so I was led to this home and was really quite puzzled. I wrote again. I would write some, but I just felt like that's not what I was there to do, and I wasn't quite sure. I did need to do some shopping because of the party. I don't get to dress up very often, and I'm a girly girl, so I thought it would be fun to wear something really fun, a really nice dress to my birthday party. And so I thought I would find something inexpensive, but still nice. And so I knew I wanted to do some shopping and get some nice shoes. And so there was a mall, and I met this lovely young lady that worked at a store there that I actually got my dress at. And she was just such a sweet spirit, and we connected in such a way that has happened to me and does happen to me still, and probably has happened to many of you, where you just there's just something there, and it's not. I don't know what it is, but I like to call it kindred spirits or a soulmate. To me, for me, the difference is a kindred spirit is someone that God has placed in your life that you were to meet. And my interpretation of a soulmate is someone that God introduced you to before we were ever here. And I don't know how any of this works. This is just my own speculation and my own philosophy, I guess. But in the Bible, God does say that He knew us before we were in our mother's womb. And so I sometimes think about in that space where He knew us, that perhaps we're all there, the spirits that He's creating and that He's sending to the earth, and that perhaps we meet one another there. And when we do, there's that connection. And so when we come to the earth and we are fortunate enough to find each other again, that connection's there because we've met prior to our physical bodies being together again. I know it sounds hokey, but I've talked to so many people who kind of subscribe to the same idea. The Bible doesn't talk about soulmates or things like that, I know, but just because it's not in the Bible doesn't mean it isn't so, I guess. But it's a lovely way to think because I don't know how else to explain when you meet someone and you just feel like you're so connected and you don't understand it. It's as if you knew them before. And that's what makes me think that way. But this young lady in Billings, Montana was more of a kindred spirit, someone that God put us together here on earth. And she's a lovely light. She has a little girl. And we connected in such a beautiful way. And then we found each other on Facebook. And so we're friends on Facebook. And so that being there and meeting her really brought me some joy. And I realized that while I had a wonderful time with family at Christmas and New Year's, and I enjoyed all of that, and I enjoyed my time with Larry, I hadn't really felt that kind of joy. The joy I feel for my family was a different kind of joy. This was a joy that had to do with an interaction between me and this young lady and God. And so feeling that joy again made me realize that I needed to take time for myself. And I don't, up to that point, I had taken time for myself way previous to this journey. But this was different. Because I was a single woman, with a single income, and then traveling with just limited funds, I really wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't doing, I guess they call it self-care. I wasn't doing a lot of that for myself. And this connection with this young lady made me realize that that's why I was brought there, that I was brought there to do some housekeeping for myself, I guess is what it felt like. But I didn't know what that looked like. And this is going to sound very self-indulgent. But in talking to my son about being there, I told him what I was starting to feel was I was there to take care of myself. And he reminded me that we can't pour from an empty cup. And so I agreed with him. I said, I know that's why I'm here. That's why I was given that time to meditate in that state park. I know that that's why he brought me to that young lady, so I could feel that again. And I wasn't quite sure what else I was supposed to do there, but I'm sure he was going to lead me to whatever it was I was supposed to do to take care of me. So in this conversation with my son, he said to me that as a servant, which is what I believe we're all sent here to be, to serve one another, but as a servant in the capacity that I am, sometimes I have to let people serve me, which is difficult for me, and that's okay. But I told him, okay, I get it. And he said, if Jesus were there with you right now, he would probably want to wash your feet to thank you for doing God's work, for doing our Father's work. And even though that felt uncomfortable, I knew he was right. I knew he was right. So we hung up, and I had decided that I wanted to get a little bit something to eat. I wanted to grab some dinner somewhere, sit down somewhere, because I didn't do that very often. If I had an Airbnb, I usually would make food. But I had decided, okay, I'm going to go to dinner, nothing fancy. And I had seen a sign that said there was Chinese food, so I thought, oh, that sounds really good. So I went over that way. And as I pulled up, I saw a massage place. And I thought, a massage would be nice. I love a good massage. But of course, then there's that little bit of guilt of spending the money. And then I kept reminding myself of what my son had told me. Excuse me. And so it said walk-ins welcome. And so I walked in there and I said, is it possible to get a massage today? Because I knew I was leaving in a couple of days. So I thought if I couldn't get a massage that day, maybe the next day. And he said, come back in 20 minutes. And I said, oh, okay, I can go back in 20 minutes. So he put me on the books, and I thought, I'll go next door and have some Chinese and come back over for my massage. And I was saying some prayers of gratitude. I was thanking God because I felt that it was something I was to be doing. But there was always this guilt I was feeling, but it was fine. And I was going to just keep going with how my son was trying to lead me as well, because I do feel like God leads people to lead us sometimes when we're a little bit stubborn and I can be stubborn when it comes to taking care of myself. So I finished up, as I was finishing up my dinner, I saw a sign of a salon that was offering facials. And I've heard of this salon, it's a national chain, but I'd never been to one. I may have years ago, but anyway. And I thought, facial, that would be great, especially right before my party. And so I thought I'll call. If I can't get in, then I won't have it done. So I called and they were going to get me in about 15 minutes after my massage because she said she had just had a cancellation. So I was excited. I was like, okay, a massage and a facial, that's good self-care. So I was excited, but of course still feeling guilty, and went in to have my massage done. And the most beautiful little spirit led me into the room. She was so gentle and kind. And she couldn't speak English. I think she understood, like, is this okay? And you could say, okay. But she led me to the room. But the minute I was in her light, in her presence, I felt peace. And I knew this is the person I was supposed to be with and was supposed to let take care of me. Sorry. So as I got on the table, I started praying because I was just so grateful that God loves me so much that He knows that my physical body and my well-being needed something like this, and that I had a son that could remind me of that. As she massaged me, I wouldn't call it electrifying, but there was an energy, a beautiful, warm energy that she was bringing me. My body wasn't fatigued. I didn't have any real tough spots, I don't think. But just that gentle warmth that she was bringing to me made me feel so special and wonderful. And as I laid there face down, I went into deep meditation with gratitude. And I began to cry. And I was so worried she would think that she was hurting me or something. So I was trying to be as quiet as I could. But she was just so gentle. And she would hum every once in a while. And it would bring me out of meditation. And then I would go back in. And I can't explain how grateful I was for not just the massage, but that I got this beautiful spirit, and that I knew that God wanted me to do this. And so I was very thankful to Him. So I finished up there and headed to the salon, and tears streaming down my face because I'm just so grateful. And when I get in there, you go in and they give you a robe, you disrobe. And there was a room, like a waiting room, like I don't know, like a lounge with chairs. And it was, a little mood lighting. And I think there was incense burning or something because it smelled lovely. And there were these great big pots. They had rocks in them around. Each seat seemed to have their own pot. And as I looked around, I was sitting there in my robe. As I looked around, it was very peaceful. They had created a beautiful, peaceful space for women to sit and sip flavored water and just wait for their service, whatever that is. And this gentle lady came and said, I'm so-and-so, and I'm going to be doing your facial. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, I'll be right back. And even though I felt that the massage and then now the facial were things that God wanted me to do, there's always in the back of my mind when it's something so indulgent like that, that maybe I talked myself into it. But with Mark telling me what he did and the energy I felt during the massage, I was pretty sure. But then the young lady who was going to do my massage came out in front of me. She moved that big vat with the rocks in it in front of me, and she filled it up with water. And she told me to put my feet in the water. And she washed my feet. It was then that I knew for sure. Some people call it a God wink. I just call it God letting me know, yes, this is what I wanted for you, or this is what I wanted you to do, or whatever. Only because my son had made that reference, I knew for sure. So she finished up. I had the facial and it was lovely, and we had a great connection and had a great conversation. And the weather was getting bad. I saw that I shouldn't be leaving in 2 days, that I needed to leave the next day. So he had me get there, take care of business, and get on the road. Driving to Colorado, leaving Montana, the roads did get bad. And I will share that in the next episode. But I wanted to share some of the questions that I got from some of the people in Montana. But this is running long, so I'll talk a little bit about that next week, because they're beautiful questions, and I want to share the answers that I have for them. And I hope this episode doesn't sound too self-indulgent. It was a beautiful time and a beautiful gift from God, and I was very grateful. So I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I want to remind you that if you have a story that you want to share with everyone that listens to this podcast, or whoever is out there listening and following, that you might want them to hear, share God's love, share your experience, I would love to talk to you. You can email me at tammyblake@tammyblake.com, TAMIBLAKE, 1 M and an I, and I would love to talk to you. Until next week, remember, God loves you, and so do I.